is life. Yes. I don't know why. So intoxicated, man. You don't know why you do this. Yes.
What's up, everybody? Welcome back to the Life of a Car Guy podcast. I'm your host, Pete, the Car Guy. Thank y'all so much for inviting me into your lives on another beautiful Saturday. We got a whole lot to cover. Can't wait to get started. So we're going to go ahead and jump right on in with the What's Going On segment. Talk to me so you can see what's going on, what's going on, what's going on, what's going on, what's going on. All right, guys, episode 2 of Take the Wheel is officially dropping tomorrow. We are going to record with a close and personal friend of mine, Mr. Sean Hicks. Sean has been in the automotive sales industry for close to 40 years as a sales consultant, finance manager, sales manager, and a general sales manager. So I can't wait to introduce you guys to him. Can't wait to dialogue with him about how the business has changed, as well as what's it like for him to be a car guy. So look forward to that. Tomorrow afternoon, we're going to be recording, and I'm going to put it up onto the YouTube page tomorrow evening, just to let you guys know. Again, thank you all that have been checking out the website, www.lifeofacarguy.com. Be sure to like and comment on the blogs and check out the other videos and things there as well, too. All right, guys, here we go. Industry news. This past week was commemorative for Earth Day, which was Wednesday, April 22nd. And USA Today dropped an article that highlighted 3 of the most fuel-efficient vehicles for this year, 2026. And those 3 were the Toyota Camry hybrid, the Hyundai Elantra hybrid, and of course, the mainstay that's been in the industry for such a long time, the Toyota Prius. So I was a little surprised only because there was particular makes that did not make this list, but I'll share with you why in just a minute. The Toyota Camry hybrid, this was the first year that Toyota has introduced the Camry in just a hybrid only. They did not produce a gas model this year. So a lot of that is the reason behind that really is because the interest has waned on sedans and kind of gone more into SUVs and crossovers. So Toyota's kind of backed off of a high production level on a lot of their sedans, just like a lot of other manufacturers have. But they kept the hybrid in place for this year, 2026. Great thing about the Toyota Camry is that it was highlighted and getting, in terms of fuel efficiency, 53 miles per gallon in the city and 51 on the highway, which is excellent all around for a sedan. The gas or the overall tank capacity in normal driving conditions can go up to 664 miles off of one tank, which is excellent. Starting price for the Camry is right around $29,300, and they go up based on features and the package level. Now, the Hyundai Elantra, this one was a good one because of the price point. It was right around mid 25, like 25,300 to 25,450 to start off with, which is excellent considering that's a brand new car. One thing I loved about this was that the fuel capacity on this was just a little bit under 600 miles off of a full tank, right at about 594 to be specific. Now, the highway range on this was pretty phenomenal, which was right at 58 miles per gallon, and the city range was right at 51, which is excellent for a small sedan. So that one did very well as well, too, and I love the price point on this one. Finally, the Toyota Prius, one of the longest mainstay vehicles in its class, was right up there in terms of the fuel capacity, right at about 644 miles off of a full tank. And the highway rating was right at 56 miles per gallon, and the city right at 57, which was also very, very excellent. What surprised me about this, in my own personal and professional opinion, was that Honda was not a part of this list. And I was a little shocked to see that because usually Honda has been known to be one of the most fuel efficient lines in the industry. But when I did some research on this before doing the podcast, I found out that the Accord and the Honda Insight, which is comparable to the Toyota models, did not match up. So the Honda actually was like 51 on in the city and only 44 miles per gallon in the highway. So very interesting. The Insight, which actually was the first mass produced hybrid vehicle back in late 90s, early 2000s, used to get right around 63 miles to the gallon, excuse me, per gallon in terms of fuel efficiency. Now, the 2026 model is slated to do right around 55 on the city and around 49 on the highway. So go figure. Maybe Honda will step it up and try to outpace Toyota. Honda and Toyota are always trying to outdo each other as the tops in fuel efficiency as well as durability and reliability. So we'll see what happens next year, right? All right, guys, here we are with the topic of discussion. We are on step 4. So let's do a quick recap. Step 1 was the recon, research, and reviews. Step 2 was pre finance. And then step 3 was the first date or the test drive. Now, step 4, we're going to talk about transaction time and negotiation. So, this is where the rubber meets the road. We have found the vehicle and we are ready to transact. So we got a lot of topics to cover on this. It's so much that I'm going to try to break this up a little bit. But we're going to hit as much of it as we can to try to fill you all in on what to do, how to be prepared, and what forms of payment are available. Okay. So when we talk about this forms of payment, let's talk about what is considered cash transactions. Okay. Now, when we say cash transactions, we're talking about no financing within the dealership. Okay. So cash, cash, that's always king. I've had clients on multiple occasions come in with bags of money. Some people had them in a briefcase or in a purse or whatever, and they've paid just in full with cash. Obviously, you can still pay with cash. There's no change in that of any time right now, and that should still be the case in most cases to this day. One thing I would just kind of bring to your attention, any transactions that happen in cash of 10,000 or more, you may have to fill out what's called an OSHA form, which is specific to reporting a cash payment done for the IRS. So just be aware of that. Sometimes dealers will have that already worked out within the paperwork. Sometimes there may be a separate document that you may have to sign for that. So just be prepared for that if that becomes the case. Okay. Personal checks still used to this day and still can be used at pretty much any dealership. Now, with a personal check, it's a little easier to carry around, not as worrisome about losing or anything like that with respect to having money fall out. But with a personal check nowadays, they do have to be verified. So in most cases, dealerships will go through a verification process. Some may just be one-on-one with your sales consultant. Like you may be able to show them your online access to show the balance in the account, and they'll match that up with what's on the check. Sometimes they'll have check readers to kind of scan to make sure the check has the balance and everything in it. Sometimes they may have to do something a little different. So if you do plan on paying a car in full with a check, just be ready to go through a verification process and have what the dealer needs to specify the verification. Okay. Another form is debit cards. Now, this one kind of came as of late. I'll say with like in the past 5 to 7 years. There are banks now that will allow a full debit card transaction to take place for an automotive purchase. Now, that will also depend on the bank. There are some banks that may have like a daily limit in terms of swiping a card for, especially when it comes to an automotive purchase. Some may even flag it as fraud. So if you have a bank that has a stipulation or requirement in terms of like a daily amount that cannot be exceeded, make sure that you contact them and see if that can be changed or are upped for the day when you make the purchase. If it can't, you may have to do a different form of payment or setup that the dealership will allow. Okay. The other one in terms of cards would be credit cards. Now, this one is a little different because for a lot of dealerships, they will not allow a credit card payment. And the main reason why is because the credit card vendors or the merchant vendors will charge a very hefty fee for a transaction of that amount. So dealers aren't necessarily not interested in trying to have options for clients such as this. It's just that they have to pay a hefty cost just to do a credit card run. So some dealers are equipped to do it, some aren't. Some will limit a certain amount up to a certain dollar figure. So if that takes place, you just want to make sure you kind of know that ahead of time so you don't have any surprises or have to prolong the purchasing process. Okay. The other option that we talk about are bank draft checks. Now, this is a little different. This is basically like a preset check that has been done, like a cashier's check. Or let's say if it was a check that was issued based off of financing that was done at your local institution. That can happen as well, and that will take place with a check verification of its own. Typically, that might be a little different than a personal check verification. So be prepared with that if that's your form of payment that you're going to be using. Another form in terms of a bank draft check is like a pre-authorization or what we call like a pre-qualification check. There are certain banks or finance companies that use these. One that comes into mind is Capital One Auto Finance. Sometimes what you have to do is you have to print off some paperwork and have a reference number that you give to your dealership if they're not affiliated with Capital One Auto Finance. And then what they'll do is they'll call and they'll get everything straight there. Another way, if they are affiliated, they'll input that within their own financing and run it as if they're using Capital One as your primary finance option. That can also be done if they are an affiliate or a partner to the Capital One Auto Finance process. Another one would be like a Bank of America or like a Navy Federal Credit Union option. With Bank of America, they have a preset amount that you are authorized for, and that's inputted into the dealer information as a form of financing. Some dealers will work with that, some won't, so make sure you find that out prior to. Navy Fed, they do like a pre authorized check in most cases where the sales consultant or the finance person has to fill that out. Typically, with this, what they do is that they contact Navy Fed, they verify the amount that's being spent, and they also verify the vehicle by way of the VIN number, year, make, and model, and mileage. They do that because their vehicle has to match within their valuation process to make sure that the value will match with what you can spend. Sometimes, and I've encountered this, sometimes the value may be overstated or may not be up to par with what the credit union will offer. And in some cases, you may have to put down additional money to cover the difference. So also be aware of that and make sure that that's ready and available so you don't prolong the process there either. Okay. Now, next step we're going to talk about is financing within the dealer location. Now, there are about 4 or 5 factors that go into financing and determining what your monthly payment and your financing options are going to be. Obviously, the first one that comes to mind is your credit or credit worthiness. Okay. Definitely want to make sure you have an idea of what that looks like prior to, if you can. If you don't, then that doesn't mean that you can't go through with the process. It just means that you may or may not be aware of some things prior to going to the dealership. Okay. Down payment is another big one that can come in the form of cash, debit card, personal checks, or what have you. As far as the term, that's basically how long you're doing a loan for the purchase of the vehicle. Average loans used to be like 48 months or 4 years, then it grew to 60 months or 5 years. Now the industry average is right around 72 months or 6 years. I've seen loans that go up as high as 84 months or 96 months. I would recommend not doing that because the interest rates go up much higher for those longer terms. So if you can, try to stay with the 72, if not like 75 or 76 month option. Also, interest rate obviously is a big one. That's based on credit worthiness. It also is based on how active you've been in the 3 bureaus over the past several years. So you may have a great credit score, but if you've not had any financing or anything in quite a long time, sometimes it may look like that you are just starting back up again as like a brand new financier without any established credit. So be prepared for that in case you haven't used your credit in a very, very long time. That can also happen. But what can really affect the interest rate and kind of bring that down is a substantive down payment. So the higher amount that you're able to put down, that can also not only affect your monthly payment, but also your interest rate. Finally, your trade in. This is a big one. Okay, so there are three kinds of trade ins that can take place. The first one that comes to mind is one that you own outright, like you actually have the physical title and you own the vehicle. You're not making payments, it's been paid off however long. So in this example, let's start with, let's say your trade-in is worth $10,000. So obviously you don't have any balance that's due on a bank note or anything like that. So that $10,000 actually acts as your money down or your down payment. Okay. So that's what we call positive equity in full. Okay. That means that the full amount of your value of your vehicle can be used to put down on your new car. Okay. Another example would be like positive equity, but still have a loan that needs to be paid off. So in this example, let's say you have a value of $10,000, but let's say your loan value is $5,000. So in this case, the equity you have to put down is 5,000. 10,000 minus 5,000. Real simple, real easy, right? Even though you owe money on the loan, because the vehicle's worth more, that difference can be used as down payment. Okay. Finally, this one is the one that really can affect an overall approval and can affect your overall amount and whether or not you're able to kind of move on with the purchase. So this one's called negative equity. In this case, same example. Let's say your vehicle is worth 10,000, but let's say your loan value is 15,000. So in this case, what that means is you're bringing $5,000 of negative equity and you're putting that at the bottom of the total loan amount. So let's say if your loan is like 20, let's say if your loan is 30,000 after taxes, title, tax. With the negative equity, your loan goes up to $35,000. So in a lot of cases, that can affect the overall interest rate, the type of loan approval. It may even require you to prove certain things. It may even require you to put more money down to cover the difference. So you want to be aware of that as well. And if you do have a situation where you have negative equity, you want to be prepared to know that your payments are going to be higher based off the fact that you're adding more money to the bottom line of the loan. Okay, so very important steps there. Now, when we're understanding pricing and monthly payments, I created this little chart here, and I hope it's going to show pretty well in the example. Good, it does. So this is a breakdown of what financing looks like basically after you've incorporated taxes, title, and tags. So for the total price, let's say after everything, you're financing $10,000, right? So roughly for every 10,000 you finance, you're looking at a monthly payment right around $200 per month. Okay. For every 15,000, that goes up 300 to $300. And for 20,000, that goes up to 400. So basically how the math works here, for every $5,000 increase you have to the bottom line of your loan, that's going to add an additional $100 per month to your monthly payment. Okay. So that's very important to kind of keep that in mind. And obviously, if you have a higher financed amount, just follow the math with that. So for every 5,000 you add, that adds another $100 per month. So now let's talk about your monthly, your down payment. So for every $1,000 you put down, that equates to a change of $20 per month to your monthly payment. For 2,000 down, that would change it to $40 per month, and 3,000 down, that would change to $60 per month. So great example here. So if you've got money down, that will give you an idea of how much it will affect your down payment. Okay. Now, one other thing to kind of point out, and we talk about average monthly payments that are attributed now in the US. This was a little excerpt I got from Experian.com. The average monthly payment in the US in 2025 and 26 for a new car is right around $760 per month, and a pre-owned vehicle right around $570 per month. Okay, so just kind of give that as a rough average. That incorporates, A plus credit and subprime credit situations as well. So just kind of keep that in mind when you're looking at certain prices for vehicles, and you kind of have a decent average of what that could be. Okay, now let's talk about negotiation. Now, there are clients out there that would rather just know the bottom line and not fiddle with this, and that's okay. You are more than welcome to say, hey, look, I don't want to do the back and forth. What is the bottom line figure that you can do? Now, in the negotiation process, be prepared to ask. Is this negotiable? You are not harming anybody in terms of asking this question. And in most cases, I would recommend it. Now, there are certain dealers and certain manufacturers that do not haggle or do not negotiate off their price. So if you still want to do business with them, that's no problem. That's no knock on you. Okay. If you decide that you'd rather negotiate and they don't do it, just be prepared. You may have to go somewhere else where negotiating is welcome. Okay. Now, when I say be prepared to ask the question, just ask them. Okay. Can you negotiate? And then if you have an idea in mind, which I would recommend that you do, make sure that you understand what that is relative to what the asking price is and where you are at the bottom line figure. All right. So I've seen situations where people are looking for like $10,000 to $12,000 off. I can tell you in this economy, especially nowadays, even in new cars, that's probably not going to be the case in most situations. So have a realistic understanding of not only what things are right now in terms of inflation and what prices are, but also understand what you can and cannot do. A lot of information, especially for new cars and even pre-owned, are given out there for what the valuations are supposed to be on vehicles. Keep in mind, these are good resources and good guidelines. That doesn't necessarily mean that that's going to be the case for the specific vehicle that you are looking at. So if you're doing research on the certain price points of cars, just have that understanding and also just have a reasonable understanding of what you can afford and what is comfortable for you. Now, this one is very important. So, some customers that have come across who weren't very familiar with the financing process in terms of coming to where the payments are, were looking at vehicles that were showing like $50,000 or $60,000, and were thinking that their payments were going to be $400 a month. Unless you have a sizable down payment, that's probably not going to happen. So have an understanding of where payments are going to be relative to what I showed you on the chart here, and just be prepared that if you're trying to meet that monthly payment setup, you need to make sure that you have the down payment to get to that level. Okay. Now, when you're negotiating and you're down to the bottom line price, if you're ready to move forward, go ahead and move forward. If it's not where you are in agreement with and it just doesn't fit your financing, then you might need to look at a different option. No problem with that. Okay. So that always have that in the back of your mind if that's your strategy and what you're looking to do. Okay. Now, let's talk about the finance paperwork, including the bill of sale, or what we call the buyer's order, as well as the finance form. So, the buyer's order, typically, when you have completed and you've negotiated and they present you with the buyer's order, it's important to review all the numbers and understand what charges that are applied to your total out the door price. The typical types of numbers are going to be the actual sale price, sales tax, doc fee, or what we call processing fee, title fees, and tags or license plates. Okay, those are the typical ones. Some atypical additions might be like a dealer business license tax. That may be based on the county for which the dealer is associated with and where they do business in. Also, there may be a doc fee, a prep fee, some other fees. Just have a clear understanding of what those are, and be clear on what they're supposed to be for and whether or not you can or have to pay those. Typically, a processing fee is not required by law. However, that is a fee that dealerships may charge based on what it takes for them to process a transaction. That's the typical definition for a processing fee. Okay. Now, in a lot of cases, this isn't negotiable, so be prepared for that. One thing I will tell you, the Motor Vehicle Dealer Board requires every dealership that charges a processing fee, they have to display it in a clear and visible area. Typically, it's going to be somewhere where the finance office is, or it's going to be near a very visible point throughout the dealership. So be mindful of that. Okay. Now, when we talk about the finance document, where we're looking at finance, there are 4 to 5 main categories I want you to focus on here. One is APR, which stands for annual percentage rate. That's the interest rate that's being charged based on the loan that you're using. Okay. Another one is the principal. That's going to be the bottom line figure after everything, taxes, title, tags, for the loan that you're about to take. Now, the interest that's compounded over the course of the term of the loan, okay, is going to be that interest accrued. That's going to show you the total amount as if you were only doing the bare minimum payment required. So if you're putting more towards your monthly payment every month, or if you put down a substantial, what do you want to call, like a monthly down payment or a monthly payment to kind of go against principal, that's going to positively affect the total amount of interest that accrues. Is going to lower it and help you pay the vehicle off sooner. Okay, so just keep that in mind. Obviously, the term is another one that just tells you how many months that you're financing the vehicle, of course. And then the total payment amount is going to calculate the whole amount that you're going to pay back, assuming that you're just doing the bare minimum amount with interest. Okay. So pay attention to those numbers, make sure they work out to what they're supposed to be. Dealerships are required to show you that, and you are obviously have the right to stop the process to take time to review if you so choose. If you're comfortable with it, you want to move forward, that's fine. No worries. Okay. Now, when we talk about additional items that are added to the purchase, like extended warranties or extended service plans, gap coverage, tire and wheel key replacement, those are great add ons. It's good to understand not only what they are, but what they cover. So, an extended service plan or extended warranty is going to go above and beyond what's already on the vehicle. Wherever you buy your vehicle, make sure that the company or the dealership that you are working with has a reputable warranty program. So it's good to kind of do some research and look up the warranty itself and know what they cover and what's not covered. Okay. Typically, for brand new vehicles, if you are definitely within the mileage and the year range of how long you're going to keep the vehicle, and the new car offers a decent coverage, you may or may not want to do the extended service plan, and that's okay. With pre-owned vehicles, I almost always recommend it for a couple of reasons. Number one, most used cars out there may or may not have a substantial amount of their warranty from the manufacturer left. Okay. And then a lot of times dealers will offer a warranty that usually only goes up to like 30 days, maybe 90 days. Even on certified pre-owned vehicles, those are limited to the coverage as well. I typically and strongly recommend an extended service plan for a pre-owned vehicle, because you don't know in terms of all the checks and everything that are done on the vehicle to make sure it's sound. That doesn't mean something can't happen later on. So it's a good thing to have peace of mind to have and to put on your vehicle in the event something happens, and it kind of limits the amount of money you have to pay out of pocket for a repair. Gap insurance, or guaranteed asset protection, covers you in the event of a total loss scenario. So what it does is it covers the difference between the loan value and the actual cash value, or what the vehicle is valued at by your insurance at the time of a total loss. Okay. Typically, gap insurance is used if you are not putting down a large amount of a down payment, and or you have a high interest rate and a long term. So if something were to happen, when we talk about negative equity, we talk about what your vehicle is worth to your insurance company relative to the loan payoff. So if the loan is more than what the vehicle's worth, that means you got negative equity. What GAP does in that case of a total loss, it covers that difference. So you end up walking away not owing anything to anybody. So if you're in a situation where you're not putting down a large sum of money, and I would say at least a third to half the value of the vehicle, and you have a pretty high interest rate, like something over 10%, I would recommend having gap insurance all day long. And if the dealer offers it to you, take it. It's definitely strongly recommended. Okay. Tire and wheel repair, key replacement, these are additional options. If you're buying an expensive car, especially one that has expensive wheels, and you and I have all had this issue where we've hit a curb, or we scraped our wheels, or we hit a pothole and your wheel is damaged or your tire's ruptured, if that coverage covers those kinds of situations and incidences, and by the way, definitely make sure that they do, I would recommend something like that, because to replace a wheel nowadays is very, very expensive, especially if you're doing one specific to that vehicle and specific to that dealer make. The key replacement, this one is a big one. If you've ever been one to lose keys or had to replace a key, especially nowadays when they're push button start and they're the smart key fobs, those things can get really, really expensive. I've seen them 300, 400. I've seen close to $1,000 per key, especially if it's a hard key to replace. That's something I probably would look into a little bit more and kind of give some kind of credence to if that's something that's offered. Okay. Now, one thing we're going to talk about real quick is just dealer incentives and items for prep. Obviously, if a dealer offers rebates or cashback incentives, or they have great financing options that are better than what you can get elsewhere, take them. That's free money. Okay. Definitely do that. Definitely, I strongly, strongly recommend that. As far as clean for prep and gas, make sure that your dealer offers that and lets you know that up front. If you're expecting your vehicle to be cleaned in a certain way, make sure that you specify and make sure that meets your requirements. Usually, the clean for prep is not a full detail. Okay, so it's going to be just a basic clean in most cases and a basic fill up. So just kind of be mindful and prepared for that when you're ready to take delivery of your vehicle. Make sense? Yeah, I thought it would. So now let's talk about the return policy. Okay. So we kind of addressed this on the test drive portion in step three. This is specifically and definitely the point where you definitely need to check before you sign on the dotted line to make sure you are fully aware of what, if any, return policy is available. Now, some dealers who do this may do like a 3 day, 5 day, 7 day. I've seen 10, even 30 days in some establishments. It just kind of depends. But if you are looking at this, especially if you're doing a mechanic review and this is a pre owned vehicle, you need to have a clear understanding of what that is and how long you have before you can return the vehicle without owing anything or without having any kind of obligation. Now, within the return policy, a couple other things to pay attention to is the time frame of how long it would take to get things back, i.e., your down payment. So sometimes it may take a couple of weeks after you return a vehicle to receive your down payment back. And that especially depends on how you financed, how you did your payments and everything else, and also the establishment to which you put the money down with. So typically on a down payment setup, typically it takes about 10 to 14 days. That's been a rough industry average that I've seen for a while now. But just have a clear understanding of what that looks like with the dealer or the place that you're working with. In addition with that, if you're doing a mechanic review within that return policy, make sure that you have that mechanic review done in good amount of time so that you can meet the return policy if you decide to use it. Okay. Now, with respect to mechanics review, sometimes they will allow you to do that before you sign paperwork. In most cases nowadays, I'm seeing it as that's something that needs to be done after the fact. Once again, like I said, make sure you understand the time frame and everything. When you go to do the mechanic review, we mentioned this back in step three. Definitely make sure you take the service history, Carfax, or the Experian auto check report, whatever you have in terms of documentation to show that's done, so that your mechanic can kind of look at that and verify if that's the case. And then, of course, with the mechanic review, sometimes with the coverage in terms of things that are done to the vehicle, like say if the dealer does like a 30-day coverage on certain things, and let's say within the mechanic review of that time frame, let's say they find things that need to be done. So in this case, I always strongly recommend let the dealer know first prior to do anything. Okay. Sometimes a dealer will allow your mechanic to fix it and they'll reimburse the mechanic directly. Sometimes they would rather you have the vehicle brought back so they can address them in their own way at their own location. What I wouldn't do is go ahead and pay for repairs to your mechanic up front and then try to go back and have the dealer cover those costs without checking first. Sometimes a dealer will not do that. Sometimes there's certain things that a dealer may or may not cover. So before you do anything, if something is found out on the vehicle, check to make sure the dealer is aware and find out what their requirements are prior to you doing anything else. Okay. Now, that concludes the step four for the car buying process. Let's go ahead and start the drop a dime setup now. So, what the purpose of Drop a Dime was for everyone that's watching the podcast and the videos and everything to reach out to me directly in case they have any questions that they want me to ask. So now I'm ready, and I have people that have reached out to me that have asked me certain things that I can address with everybody else. So that makes this fun. For those of you who don't understand the term or are not familiar with drop a dime, this came from a term my dad used to say back in the day. Years ago, when we had payphones, they used to be a certain denomination. Back when my dad was coming up, used to be 10 cents. And there used to be a thing that says drop a dime if you want to call me or check on me or ask me something. So that's where that comes from. So I figured we'll use that in the same vein through the emails that I receive. And one of my buddies that's a part of the podcast and part of the Car Guy group, Adam, gave me a two-part question to present to you guys. So here's part one. What are some good vehicle options for pre-owned vehicles for those that are on a budget? That's a great question, Adam. I'm glad you asked that. So my three main go-to vehicles or makes are going to be Honda, Toyota, Nissan. Those are my top three in any given moment in any given day. They typically last very long. They typically are easy to work on. Most mechanics will swear by them in terms of longevity, durability, and reliability. And they're great vehicles. They may be a little bit more costly, depends on the models and the amounts and how old they are with respect to that. But if not those three, then definitely Hyundai and Kia are great models to choose. These have been over the years, and they've definitely really have improved their overall quality and durability, especially within the last 10 to 15 years. I will say there's been a small segment of those from like, I want to say 2016, 17 up through 21 to 22 that had an issue of being broken into and had the ignition switches to be manipulative in a way where people can drive off without having the key. There was a segment that was done online. I think it was called the Kia Boys or Hyundai Boys or whatever. And they were actually doing videos to show people how to easily break into these cars. Now, I think Hyundai and Kia have created a fix for these now. And I believe for a good portion of the models that they now have a setup to where they can be done. And I think that the dealer manufacturer may cover the cost for that. So if you're looking at a Kia or a Hyundai within that year range that I mentioned, just make sure that that's already been done if it's applicable to that car. Some weren't. So it's not on every model and every vehicle, but that's just something I would probably check. Another models that I would choose would be like Ford and Chevy. Those have been pretty decent pre-owned vehicles as well. With any vehicle, regardless of the make or model, I would always make sure that you have a sound vehicle history report as well as a maintenance check, especially if you're going private with a purchase of a vehicle. So if the previous owner definitely has those records and they're able to show them to you, definitely look at them. That's just adds more value to what you're purchasing, and more importantly, kind of gives you peace of mind that this is going to last you for longer than the time that you purchased it. Okay. So that's question number one that Adam presented to me. Question two, he asked me, what pre-owned vehicles should I avoid? So this one's a tough one. I have some main ones that I typically just shy away from all day long, and those are going to be especially older models now, Volkswagens, uh, Land Rover, Range Rovers, definitely, and Jaguars. They typically have in the previous years, and not saying that they haven't improved since, but the cost for repairs and the likelihood of having major breakdowns are much higher with those models, especially if they're older and higher mileage. So I typically shy away from those three models specifically. I've had some mixed reviews on some German vehicles like the BMWs, the Mercedes, the Audis as they get older and higher in mileage. Those can be hit or miss at times. Now, I shared with you guys that I owned a 2006 BMW that I bought that was right at 200,000 miles. So the only reason why I bought that one was because I had the history, I had the information about what was done, and I did my background research on that particular year model. So I knew what I was getting into with that, and it ended up being a very sound vehicle, and it lasted throughout. So if you're looking at models like that, please, please, please do the three-prong check: vehicle history, maintenance records, and consumer reports reviews. Okay. And that can go for any of the vehicles that I mentioned anyway, but especially if you're going to the German vehicles. Also, one other thing, if you're going to buy one, I would make sure that you have a mechanic or some place that you can go to where it's affordable for you to do certain repairs. Okay. Typically, for the German vehicles, if you don't have a good connection that is going to be very cost effective, I would be a little bit more remiss about taking part in those types of vehicles because of the cost of upkeep and maintenance can be very, very high compared to the Hondas, the Toyotas, Hyundais, Kias, and what have you. Okay. So that's my answer for that. And regardless of whatever you purchase or look at, just make sure, once again, that you have a solid vehicle history report as well as maintenance records to boot. All right. Hope that helped you out, Adam. So, anyway, next, let's talk about announcements. So, Take the Wheel episode 3 will be the following weekend. Okay. I will be visiting and doing the ride along with a Insta 360 camera, dash camera with my buddy Jarvis. And we're going to be driving the Dodge Viper. So that's going to be fun. We'll also check out the Corvette that he has as well. So looking forward to that. And one other thing, just kind of want to make an announcement of thank you guys so much for being patient with me with regards to the video equipment and everything. There have been a couple of times where there have been some little issues, especially with the first Take the Wheel segment. So I'm going to be doing some upgrades with that, so we won't have to worry about that very soon. So hopefully we'll get that squared away and get that done too. So, guys, we're getting ready to sign off. Thank you so much for hanging out with me. This one was a little bit more substantive, a little bit more detail to cover, and a little bit longer than normal. So, thank you for hanging out with me for this time as well. Homework assignment once again, guys. You know anybody that's interested in the podcast or would like to see the podcast, definitely show it to them and tell them to like and subscribe as well. We want to continue to grow the subscriptions and everything up so that at some point we can establish some sponsorships and things with the Life of a Car Guy setup. All right. And like I said, this is this thing of ours. This is our thing. Want to make sure that everybody feels included and a part of the overall process. And thank you so much for joining me. And again, this is available and for anyone and everyone that wants to learn about cars. So thank y'all for being a part of it. All right, guys. So we're going to go ahead and say good night and good afternoon and have a good day and everything else. Appreciate you riding with me. Want to say praise God because he's always got the wheel. And even though we may not always agree, it's important that we show respect. Stay up, and I'll see you out in the road.